that sucks.
What's up guys, Nick here. We are back with the 1985 Dodge D100 pickup truck. On the last video, we were able to get the truck running and driving after being parked for 19 years. Right now we have a really bad issue where the transmission fluid is blowing out of the dipstick, and I've come to the conclusion that it's either one of three things. So the first thing is the easiest solution would be a clogged filter, and judging by the pan how grimy it is, it could potentially be a clogged filter. So I went ahead and removed the pan, inspected the valve body, and then installed a new Wix filter and gasket. If that doesn't fix our issue, it could be a torque converter that is excessively slipping, causing the fluid to heat and then froth up and blow out of the dipstick. We do know that it's getting frothy, so that's the problem. And then the other issue could potentially be the vent is clogged, which would mean we would have to pull the transmission and check it. It would be behind the torque converter. So stay tuned and let's see if we can get this old 727 shifting and doing what it's supposed to do.
So the truck's in neutral. If I start it up, put it in gear, it'll move forward. Put it in reverse, it'll move in reverse. After about a minute or two, the fluid starts to get really frothy and it'll start blowing out, and then I lose my gears. So what I'm thinking is the vent behind the torque converter is plugged, and let me show you why I think it's plugged. And this is why, because look behind the back seat. I mean, it is just full of dauber nest. Somebody left the flywheel inspection cover off, so I'm assuming that dirt daubers got up in there and plugged the vent. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the transmission and see what I find. All right, so I got the 727 removed sketchily with a jack because I lost my trans jack. But check this out. So this was the problem, I think. That's a vent. It's clogged, full of dirt dauber's nest. So our transmission wasn't venting, and then it was building up pressure within that couple minutes, and it was blowing out the dipstick. So if you ever have a 727 or a torque flight transmission that is blowing fluid out of the dipstick and you lose gears, it's probably that vent right there. So it looks like our torque converter is labeled 2001. So I'm assuming at least the torque converter was probably rebuilt, and then the trans, I'm sure it probably was rebuilt too. I really doubt that they were trying to fix an issue, because torque converter was rebuilt in 2001, and then the registration sticker says 2004. So they probably had the transmission rebuilt, drove it for a couple years, had more trans problems, and then was like, screw it, and just stopped driving it, or parked it and then went back to it, and they left the cover off the bottom, and then they realized, oh crap, we have more trans problems, and then just gave up on it. So on these 727s, all I have to do is remove these bolts, these outer bolts, and then two of these bolts will have a threaded, will have a thread on them, and then I just put a slide hammer in there, and I should be able to pop it right out. Show you guys what I find on the vent. So the bolts off of the starter, I think it was, no, not the starter, off the bell housing, they thread into that hole. So just get them in there far enough, take a little pry bar. I don't have a slide hammer with me, so it should just pop right out. Pretty easy. Whenever I went to put it back together, I was having problems getting the drum to fit in there. So I have a friend of a friend who's a transmission guy. and he told me what to do, and then it just got worse from there. I ended up, the adjuster for the band fell off and fell down into the valve body. So at this point, it's gonna need to be disassembled. So I'm gonna take it over to his house, and he's gonna tear it down for me and show me how it all works, and show you guys how it works. All right, guys. So I'm here with my new friend Dylan. He's gonna show us how these 727s work, and from so far, based off of the band, he's saying that most likely somebody had rebuilt it, because it still has the lettering, and they must have overlooked something. We're thinking it's probably something inside the valve body, but I guess you can just explain.
I'll try to explain as I go. I can take this pan off and get a good fucking look at everything.
You hear that deal?
Yeah. Yeah, I just reach down and pick them back up and kind of stab it. But there's surprisingly a lot of pieces to those band strips.
How long have you been doing transmissions?
12 years. I was trained when I was 18 for a buddy of mine's dad, and he owned a reman company. Worked there for 12 years. Oh yeah, that actually looks really good. Worked there for 12 years. We built literally everything. All our units came straight to the dealerships. If you go to O'Reilly's or AutoZone and buy one, you're buying one of ours. Say all the big brown UPS trucks, I built all the transmissions for those. We were contracted by Monster Transmission for a little while because they didn't like to build their own stuff. There's not a whole lot to these valve bodies because everything is still hydraulic. You're probably gonna have maybe 7 valves altogether. Your fluid is actually picked up right here at your filter. So your fluid will suck up into there. It'll go into this pickup hole, into the pump, and then from there transfer the fluid down through this tube into this drum, which all has, there's little feed holes in here that apply pistons and clutches. Your clutch packs will rise and fall as the fluid hits them.
Okay.
And then in here, in the valve body, you actually have your hydraulic channels. So each one of these channels inside of here will push fluid to a certain part of the case into a certain drum or a housing, and then apply the pistons.
Gotcha.
And these are your servos. They work your bands. You have fluid that'll run into here, and you have a little feed pocket right there and right there. When fluid builds up behind it, it'll actually apply these and tighten up your bands that are in here. That's your forward band and your reverse band.
Okay. So this thing isn't really as complicated as it.
They're not. The hardest part is the bands. People struggle with the bands. Like that's all your clutches right here, is those 2 sets.
Really? Oh my god.
2 bands, 2 sets of clutches. I say a lot of guys will use these in like drag cars.
Yeah.
Just for the 3-speed, they'll change this valve body over to a full manual or a reverse manual.
That's what it seems like with
So
everything.
the old shit with the aluminum accumulators, the aluminum pistons are where it's at. So that's your reverse, that's for your forward drum, that's your 2-3 accumulator, and that just kind of floats in that pocket and balances out on this plate.
So what are these?
These are your forward clutches and forward steels. So whenever fluid is applied to that piston, it'll push itself out and engage your clutches. So these will actually tighten together and stop spinning.
Gotcha.
And that's what actually engages your gear.
What do they look like? Do they look decent?
Oh yeah. They're stock, but I mean they look good for the age. Somebody's definitely been in it before. These look brand new.
Gotcha. So what's the What's your thought on Dodge transmissions? Because everybody always says Dodge has the worst transmissions.
If you put a tuner on them and crank them up, it's gonna explode.
Okay.
There's not a lot you can do unless you want to pay for like a full competition sled build.
Yeah.
Tuners destroy them. Oh, and this is how I know this has been worked on. This plate used to sit like that.
Oh.
All those hot spots are from where this transmission burnt up last time. And this is actually a trick that the old timers do.
Flip it.
Yeah,
and you get more life
the plate
out of
over.
it.
Yep. So I was right on those other ones. Those other steels were replaced because all that right there is brand new.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even look like it's really been used much.
Yeah. It looks like they installed it and it blew fluid and they didn't know what to do. Just gave up.
Gotcha.
You see how those are almost just under flush all the way around?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was messaging you about. Make sure those are down, because then you know it's fully seated. You'll be able to drop that pump.
Oh, you're talking about these notches.
Yeah, they got to sit just under the shell right there. That's how you know it's all the way down.
Gotcha. Yeah, so even when I did get the pump in, it wasn't all the way.
Yeah.
It was like almost down. It was like...
I say that's what you got to be careful about, because if you put that pump in, it'll lock down all those clutch teeth that were in there. You saw how you had clutches on the inside.
Uh-huh.
They will actually bend and break.
Mm.
Yeah, and then you'd have to be paying me to rebuild it.
Right.
You'd have some hard parts damage. See, I like them when they're like this, and I can just open them and figure out what's wrong and put them back together.
Yeah. So that band isn't dated though, is it?
It might be on the back. Like, I'm sure one of these numbers.
Yeah, you can tell
date
just,
on it.
just by looking at it though.
Oh yeah, it's good. I say it is a stock band, but it's not a bad band.
Mm-hmm. That's your band adjustment, right?
Yes. We're not going to touch the inner adjustment. We're just going to leave it alone. I just hope it's been adjusted right. I don't know how many miles were on it after the rebuild, but I mean, yeah, that feels pretty good. So what happens is, as you're going into probably second and third, this piston, that little pin that's in there, is going to come out and push against that lever, and that's what locks down your band.
Just like you letting off the clutch?
Yep, and then it'll engage this hole.
Ah, gotcha.
And then reverse will do basically the same thing. So whenever you apply reverse, this lever will come out, lock this band against that drum, hold you in reverse.
And it's all fluid driven from the valve body.
Yes.
And
Everything runs through these channels. Actually, I want to open this up. Did you get as much of that out of there that you could?
The goop?
Yeah, everything that was in there.
Oh yeah, I blew through it with compressed air, and then I checked it. It was mud dauber's nest on the front. I'm guessing it broke apart.
Yeah.
And then it was full of spiders. Yeah, there's like a bunch of spiders in there.
I've never seen one that bad. That was pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way air was getting through it. Probably not the problem, but it wasn't helping.
I mean, it very well could, because if there's no air, it's got to have some type of air for the suction. So if it's got nothing going in.
Right. Oh, so that actually sucks air in.
Yeah.
It doesn't blow out.
It only vents when it's overheating.
Gotcha.
That is the only time fluid or anything should come out of that vent.
So whenever it's pushing fluid in, the air comes through here.
Yep. As you're driving, it's
just like if you
air in there.
Okay. Just like if you have a gas can, you go to fill something up, you need a vent.
Yeah, it's got to have a little vent.
That could have been it then, because if it's circulating fluid, and then hasn't had anywhere to go, it's just gonna froth up. And
and then all your other passages look super clean on the inside. And this pump looks almost brand new. There's hardly any wear on there. You see a little bit.
And this, what is this, like a brass?
That is the bushing for the
Bushing.
torque converter. And that actually looks really good too. That's a fresh Babbitt bushing.
Wow. Yeah. You know what they may have done is they may have rebuilt it, parked the truck, and then came back to it, and then it blew, and then they were just like, I give up.
Well, I mean, yeah, it could have been something they were working on, judging by the truck, you know, fixing it up and did the transmission.
Mm-hmm.
What did it take to get the motor started? Just a battery? Some starter fluid?
That's it. The fuel pump even worked, and the gas tank was empty. I put fuel in it. The carburetor, the float, needle and seat were sticking, so it kept flooding, but just tapped on it with a screwdriver and was fine.
That's
The filter.
It actually looks very clean. You see all your check valves, that's what controls all your actual clutch packs and everything. They will shoot up through the individual holes in these plates. Like, it'll block that hole and allow fluid to pass through that hole and stroke one of these valves, and then in turn go to the clutch pack. That's normal. Fucking
Just a little bit of clutch material.
yeah, that's super normal. It looks really well, surprisingly. That is your pressure valve right there. You see where it's kind of scuffed up and discolored?
That's what that dude was saying.
Yeah, that's super worn out. I had a problem with doing that. You can see where all these are kind of worn out. See the two different colors in that one?
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to be like that. Unless that's just from sitting for so long and the fluid color, because that's on a land right there, and that might be why that's that way. This one wears out a lot. That's your actual throttle valve. They make a Transgo Junior kit that comes with this valve, this spring, and I believe it comes with a new throttle spring. I think you have to take this out and see which one's longer, and you put the longer one back in. But they're drop-in valves that you can just replace these worn-out valves with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like maybe $60 online.
Do you think that could be the problem, this valve?
I'm sure it is a problem. This would be more like a slippage problem. Like, you
Right.
wouldn't have consistent line pressure.
Because it would blow past.
Yeah, it'd be blowing past the channels in there. And they make more expensive like reaming kits where you go in there and you oversize that board just like you would a motor, and you drop in bigger valves, but you have to have the reaming tools, which are $300 per valve. And then you have to actually buy the valves when the Transgo kits are just drop-in aftermarket valves. And what they do is they change the function of the valve. So instead of fluid bypassing it, they redirect the fluid to one position.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just stick the transmission in without buying a new torque converter to see if we got the problem fixed with the clean vent. And then if that doesn't work, we'll go ahead and put a torque converter on it. Alright, so I got the transmission installed. I didn't put all the bell housing bolts back in because just in case I have to pull it, I'm going to put a couple quarts of fluid in it, start it up, let it warm up, check it. That way we have the perfect amount of fluid right here. There might be a cord in it. You know what, I'm gonna have to go buy some more fluid. I'm also gonna go ahead and put some Lucas heavy duty in there. Okay, let's warm it up. All right, you guys should be able to see the filler right there. We'll see if it fires up and does what it's supposed to do. I think we're good. I don't know, fingers crossed. I'm gonna run it through the gears. All right, so the engine's all the way up to operating temperature. I'm gonna go ahead and put my last cord in there. It's showing low. This line, this rubber hose probably needs to be replaced. Just go ahead and stick it on further, tighten it up. Alright, so we're all the way full. I'm gonna go ahead and drive around the yard.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I swear I didn't do that for views or clicks. I totally forgot that the ditch was there. So I got my 4-wheel drive truck. I'm gonna yank it out. That's what happens when you get excited. You gotta slow down. Slow down. Looks like she's unscathed.
So right now I'm going to go ahead and park the truck. I went ahead and listed it on Facebook Marketplace for $1,600. Hopefully somebody comes along and buys it. I think $1,600 is a pretty good deal for a run and driving truck. Of course, they're going to have to do the brakes, the carburetor, all the small tune-up stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward on the 55 wagon. I actually just got back from picking up an 8.8 rear end off of a Ford Explorer. It's going to go in our wagon. Stay tuned. That's going to be a pretty cool swap. It's a 318 Magnum V8 from a 95 Dodge Ram that you can see back there in the corner.